That's the sound of a new church year beginning. Good morning, everyone. Yay. Good to be back. Hope you had a great summer. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Karen Marquis, and I'll be your lay leader today. And this is the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Lower Bucks. Whether you are new, just visiting, a friend, or a member of longstanding, together we live out our core value of love on a daily basis through acceptance of all those with whom we connect. So thank you for being present today. As our first Sunday service following the summer break, this is a particularly joyous one. Yay! So in recognition of this time of coming together, today we'll be celebrating with a water communion ceremony. If you were watching your e-news, you heard about that. And this will be in place of having the message for all ages so the children can participate and then go off to their RE class afterwards. So I hope you read about it in the e-news, brought a sample from your summer break to add to our pot. But don't worry, we can provide. And more about that later. So let's begin. Last year, we introduced Soul Matters as the materials from which we would draw all of our worship service content, and even some other things that we've been doing as a fellowship and exploring. And I have been enjoying it because I put together much of the content that you hear on Sunday service. And those Soul Matter themes are new for this year. If you're interested in hearing what it is or seeing what it is that we're going to be talking about throughout the church year, see our bulletin board in the cafeteria during our coffee hour and check out the materials that you'll be hearing about through the year. What I like about it is they poll the whole fellowship community out throughout the UUA and people who are using Soul Matters to find the themes that are going to resonate with the people using it and then build the content from there. Now they gave you a choice of actually using just the short word, the noun, or the action word plus the noun. And I like that we chose action plus noun. So what that means to me is that as you listen to the messages through the year, look for something that you can do, act on, in order to change something about that topic. So for the month of September, building belonging is our theme. Most of us think of belonging as a sense of fitting in or feeling like you're an important member of a group. It is a feeling of security and support with a sense of acceptance, inclusion, and identity. As humans, our greatest desire is to know and be known, to love and be loved, and to feel confident that those who know and love us will be there for us through good times as well as bad. Belonging is feeling seen, feeling connected, feeling supported, and feeling proud. Without belonging, we can feel alone and lost. So this month, we are working on building belonging in our congregation and hope that you will explore some of the thoughts and concepts brought forth by each of our speakers. And I invite you to be welcoming to all those who come into UUFLB. So we'll light the chalice now and have some opening words. We're trying to freshen things up, do things a little bit different. So what you're going to have on the screen are the responsive reading. I did not pick someone, but Robin, would you come and help me light the chalice? Okay. Go ahead. There you go. All right, together we will read these words. Belonging is the warmth of a hand held out, the nod across the room that says, I see you. Belonging is not agreement, but the invitation to the table, the invitation to be whole. Belonging is the story that changes because you arrived, the circle that widens because we are here. Belonging is the lilt in the song sung together, made more true because it holds your note. Belonging is a promise, not that you must become us, but that you already are. We thank the Reverend David Breeden for those lyrics, and Robin, thank you for lighting our chalice. So as we begin our service, we'll start with a musical prelude. This is one that our musician, Avi Wisnia, that we love seeing each and every Sunday come, will lead us through. Hymn 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Now, not necessarily in that order, but that is the title of the song. So now most of you have entered, most of you have come in, now we're going to rejoice. And throughout these services, throughout the year, one of the great challenges and the fun things for me is picking music that fits the theme each month and each week based on the speaker and the themes that we've chose. And so there's always different music that I like to choose from all different eras, all different artists. And for those of you in the congregation, I also welcome suggestions for songs that you want to hear during the services that make you feel spiritual, that make you feel connected, that you like in your life. So I'm always open to suggestions. And today you're going to hear an example of the variety of music. I always like to include as well hymns from our UU hymnal. And usually they will be at the end of the service that we can sing together. But because we're starting off together, let us start by singing and rejoicing together. So this time I ask you to rise in body or spirit as you are able, if you are able, and join me in a rousing round of Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. And I would also like to add that we'll do several verses, and included on that fourth verse, you'll see Be Grateful for Everything. That's one that our very own Jeff Ellis wrote in his version. So we're including a verse that was written by one of our members here. So let's sing together, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Be grateful. Be grateful for everything. Appreciate everything. Show your joy each time that you sing. Be grateful for everything. One last time. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Thank you, Avi. So let me introduce today's guest speaker, guest minister, Reverend Libby Smith. The little intro always says she needs no introduction because many of us have known her very well for a long time. She was our part-time minister in the fellowship for a number of years. But I see new faces out here, so welcome those of you who are new with us. Reverend Libby was with us from 2007 to 2013, as I said, as our part-time minister. We enjoy her messages so much that now that she's retired, we encourage her to come back as often as she is interested and willing and able to do so. But oftentimes she's here helping us kick off our church year and even closing it down. It seems to be the rhythm we fell into in the last couple of years. Her sermon title is On Belonging, and she provided this description, and this really spoke to me. As loneliness reaches epidemic levels in our culture, the fostering of belonging has never been more important. How do we understand it? What helps to create it? And how do we make sure that our need to belong doesn't leave others on the outside looking in? So we look forward to your message. But before we do that, we want to join in that water communion ceremony I mentioned in the introduction. You see here an urn and a pitcher with some water in it. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to the ceremony and then invite you to come forward. So this is instead of the message for all ages, and it provides us an opportunity to reconnect. As I mentioned, your e-news suggested that you could bring a small amount of water with you if you wanted to from your summer break and whatever you were doing during that time. And in a moment, I'll invite you to come forward to pour your water into the urn that we have here. And if you didn't, don't worry about it, but you want to share what you were doing over the summer a little bit, but mostly why it was important to your spiritual journey, then you can use the pitcher. And I'll be doing that, so I'll model that behavior for you. The pooling of our waters is a symbol of our community and our shared faith. So remember that as rain falls on the earth, each drop merges with other drops, flowing together into a trickle, a streamlet, a creek, a mighty river. Some of the water seeps down into the earth itself, where it will stay until it is pulled up again by tree roots, wells, springs, rejoining the dance, the flowing that collects in ponds, lakes, and vast oceans. All the while, the sun warms the water, calling it back into vapor that rises up into the atmosphere, where it cools and begins to turn back to droplets. Our planet has all the water it will ever have. Think about that. This water cycle has been spiraling around and around for billions of years. This means that the water we gather together today comes from all over the world and from across all time on Earth. So now anyone who's interested in joining into the water ceremony can come forward, form a line on this side, and you'll pour your water in, move over to the microphone to express how this water was important to your spiritual journey, and then leave by this side. So anyone who wants to join in, please come forward. And as we begin, I'll start with mine. And the kids are welcome to come forward for some water. So the water I pour today represents all the time I spent with friends through the summer at the beach or on travels. They were important for keeping me connected to this community, and I'm thankful for them.
Hello, I'm Rich. This is Janet.
I'll have to use the microphone. Pour your water and then use the microphone.
Phase one. Phase two. I'm Rich. This is Janet.
Hello.
During the summer, we had a nice summer. And I think I'll talk about kind of like the end. One of the best parts of the summer is that our dogs came with us to a trip to Bar Harbor that we went to celebrate our 40th anniversary. And the dogs had a great time. And we had a great time, right?
It's very meaningful because we spent our honeymoon 40 years ago in Bar Harbor, and it was a very meaningful experience. And we're happy to share it with you guys.
This is my wife, Nancy. I'm Bill. We were fortunate to be able to go on a trip this summer, not too long ago, and that water represents the Mediterranean and Morocco.
Hi, I'm Melanie, and I caught some water from the rain yesterday. But what I wanted to say, I don't want to be too long-winded. 2 weeks ago, we have a dear aunt that was declining in her health, and it's a 7-hour drive. So we had taken a ride because she wasn't doing well, and we were trying to judge the time. And we had gotten there a half hour before she passed, and I was holding her hand, and it was such a privilege. I just wanted to share that. And the really cool spiritual part, at the end of the day, there was this incredible rainbow that we, again, we were looking for things, I'm sure, but it was very healing. And I learned something, that you don't have to have water for a rainbow. Sometimes it's the moisture in the sky. But anyway, thank you.
My water represented one of the highlights of my summer. One of my best friends, Jamie Stow, invited me along to kayak down the Susquehanna River, and then we camped on Blood Island for 2 nights, so we had a really great time.
Hi, my name is Beck Stow, and I spent my summer, this is water from the Atlantic on the Jersey coast. I spent most of my weekends in Belmar with my new wife, and one of those weekends was lovely enough to be spent with Jamie Stow and his family and his kids as during their vacation there. And it's just really nice to reconnect and be able to have that time, that come back to some peace by the ocean during all of the stress and craziness that is reality right now. It's good to be back.
Hi, I'm Liz. I took some of Bex's water, but we also spent some time at the beach together, and after living the past 4 years in the desert, the beach and the ocean has been nice and grounding, and nice to be reconnected with it.
Hi, I'm Tracy, and this is Chrissy and Eric. Chrissy says that her water is from day camp this summer and time at the beach, which she loves. And Eric and I were fortunate enough to vacation with best friends, and there were 6 adults and 3 children, and we had the best time together ever and are already planning to do it again.
Good morning, I'm Elizabeth. I was fortunate to spend part of July with friends in South Carolina, and we spent a wonderful day going up the intercoastal of the Carolinas in a pontoon boat, and the nature was overwhelming. It was during our heat waves up here, and of course it was hot down there, but on the water it was beautiful. And the live oak trees with the Spanish moss coming down, and we spotted alligators and an eagle's nest, and it was one of the most peaceful days ever of my summers. I'm ready for the summer to end now.
There's a little town called Rockport, Massachusetts, up on Cape Ann, where my father used to go with his family when he was a boy, and my mom and dad's first date was going there for the day, and we used to go there for family vacations, and we scattered both my parents' ashes there. Every year, my sister and I are able to spend 3 days together, going back to Rockport and going back to the beach we love and being out on the rocks where we did the scattering and just reconnecting with all those wonderful family connections. So that was a joy.
Hi, I'm Esther Miller. I'm sharing some adventures we had over the summer. Our most recent was a camping trip to the Lizard Creek in the Poconos, and it was a great time spent with friends and family to just unplug and reconnect with nature, and the kids played a lot in the creek, so that's what that water represents, the water from the creek. And there was lots of animals and just good time together with family, so that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Arlette. I guess this water could represent the Rhine River, because this summer it was a special summer. I traveled to Germany to celebrate my big birthday with a friend from college who has the exact same birthday, same day, same year. So she had a big celebration there in Osnabrück, and I joined her there, and it was very special and wonderful. And then I traveled to France, of course, to see some people there, and that was a special summer for me.
I add this last water for anyone who, didn't want to get up and come and get into the line and share verbally. So it represents your sharing and connection to this community as we celebrate this water communion ceremony. So I leave you with these last parting words about the ceremony. The water we gather today has traveled through the root system of trees long since returned to the soil, burst from geysers that have ceased spraying millennia ago, and flowed down rivers that have changed course entirely over billions of years. This morning we remember that the water cycle doesn't only involve rivers, plants, and clouds, but also creatures. The water cycles through us too, coming in and out of our bodies in many different ways. As we gather the waters of community this morning, let us remember that they connect us to everything that has ever been. That is the power of the water we share in community. So thank you for participating in our Reconnection water ceremony this morning. So now I'd like to sing the children off to their RE class with one verse of Go Now in Peace.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of us surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
So I'd like to welcome the Reverend Libby Smith forward for a reading this morning. Following the reading, we'll pause for a musical interlude that Avi will share with us before hearing Reverend Libby's sermon message on belonging.
It's lovely to be back with you all again and to meet some of you for the first time. And I was struck as I listened to what people shared as they were bringing forward the waters, that so many of the sharings had to do with a sense of community or belonging that was part of the experience that the water represented for you. So it felt very much in keeping with our theme for this month. This morning's reading comes from a book called On Belonging, Finding Connection in an Age of Isolation. It's by Kim Samuel, and she is an educator and activist and psychologist. She says, the Nguni Bantu traditions of South Africa have a word that illuminates the meaning of belonging in these cultures and societies. Ubuntu, a term whose most well-known translation from Liberian peace activist and Nobel laureate Lamin Gubawi is, I am what I am because of who we all are. The full phrase in Zulu means a person is a person through other people, a phrase theologian and anti-apartheid leader, the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, shared often. He once remarked on the difficulty of conveying Ubuntu's full message in Western languages, which are often very person-centric in grammar and syntax. Ubuntu, he said, speaks of the very essence of being human. It is to say, my humanity is caught up, is inextricably bound up in yours. We belong in a bundle of life.
In the 17th century, English poet John Donne famously wrote that no man is an island. And in the 1960s, a group called the Lettermen turned that into a song. No one is an island. No one stands alone. Each one's joy is joy to me. Each one's grief my own. We need one another. So I will defend each one as my brother, each one as my friend. I saw the people gather, I heard the music start, the song that they were singing still ringing in my heart. No one is an island. No one stands alone. Each one's joy is joy to me. Each one's grief my own. We need one another. So I will defend each one as my brother, each one as my friend.
Well, as always, Avi came up with the one song in the entire world that could have most perfectly followed the reading that I just offered you about the concept of Ubuntu. So recently I've been working my way through Kim Samuel's book on belonging. It's long and it's dense and it's involved and intricate, and I'm lifting up only very specific small pieces of it for you this morning. But one of her central points is that belonging is not only about feeling connected to other people, although that's certainly the thing we think about first, usually, but belonging is about more than that. It's also about feeling connected to a community and to a place, and having a sense of shared ownership and agency in your community. And I thought about I'm coming back to those points, so don't worry if you didn't get them all. But I thought about all of that as I read over the words for the water communion ceremony this morning. The way that that ceremony lifts up belonging at its most full-blown and grandiose level of belonging to the entire earth and all of its ecosystems, the way that water brings everything together and reminds us of our interdependence, and then by extension, our responsibility to care for the earth and for each other. But the ritual also brings it right down to the micro level as well, the level that's easier for most of us to experience on a day-to-day basis. Because for most of us, a sense of belonging starts a lot smaller than belonging to all of creation, right? I mean, that's a lovely thing to think about, but day to day, that's not where my immediate experience is. My immediate experience is the way I feel as though I belong in my family, or in my friendship circle, or in my chosen community, like this one. And so the water also reminds us, and people expressed this very specifically, of the ways we connect within these smaller contexts, the way we belong to each other in different groups and settings. And then the whole thing, of course, took place within this community, where we choose to gather and try to create a sense of belonging together. So the challenge then becomes to bring these two things together, to nurture and develop and cherish these more intimate understandings of belonging that we find in our immediate circles, our chosen groups, and then also to remember that belonging is bigger than that as Desmond Tutu put it, we belong in a bundle of life. I love that phrase. I want to be part of a bundle of life. And that bundle goes way beyond the chosen circles where we feel most at home. For many of us, feeling a true sense of belonging, even at the most basic, small level, can be challenging sometimes. I will not ask for a show of hands on this, but I'm willing to bet that everybody in this room has had the experience of feeling like you didn't belong at one point or another. And I hope we can all also remember moments when we did feel like we belonged, when we had that sense of being at home and being welcome. And it could sometimes be because of the smallest and simplest connections or events. I remember the first time I really felt like I belonged in the Mennonite church was when they asked me to make the coffee one Sunday. It's like, if they've accepted me as a kitchen lady, then I belong here. Terms like epidemic of loneliness and social isolation would have made little sense to our ancient ancestors. They lived in communities that were so utterly interdependent that the idea of isolation or loneliness was not known. In fact, in reading Samuel's book, I learned that the first use of the word loneliness probably only dates back to about 1800. Prior to that, there was a word, oneliness, which was the state of being alone, but it had no negative connotations. And in fact, in those days, a few moments of oneliness might have been a welcome respite from the constant need to be interacting, living in very small quarters, sharing and working at everything with everyone else. But with the rise of industrialization and the Enlightenment and the increased emphasis on the individual and the importance of the individual, and that idea of individual freedom gradually becoming more important than the ideals of community connection and responsibility, that began to change. And over the course of the next several hundred years, and perhaps most notably in the last 50 years or so, loneliness and isolation have become more and more common and more painful. And there's an irony to that when you think about all the promises that were made about what social media were going to do for us, right? This was supposed to have us all so much more connected. And I do believe that social media platforms can be great tools for connection. I'm not up here to say that social media are bad. But for many people, they wind up taking the place of actual human-to-human contact in real time. And Samuel draws a distinction in her book between what she calls connectivity, which people often find on social media platforms, and true connection, when you are actually with people in a place that is part of your real life. And it's not that connectivity is bad. Connectivity can be very life-affirming. It can be very helpful. But it's not always enough. And sometimes it actively gets in the way of true connection. And I have one very small example of this, and I'm guessing it will resonate for lots of you. Recently, I spent a weekend with a small group of extended family, which included a couple of 20-something young adults. Great young people, interested in other people, interesting in and of themselves, happy to be spending time with parents and grandparents for a weekend. That's a special thing. And yet, while we were all sitting out on the balcony porch of the little hotel where we were staying, For quite a long time in the afternoon, just chit-chatting back and forth, that the two of them were on their phones. We only see them 3 times a year, 4 times a year. Granted, maybe it wasn't the most scintillating conversation they'd ever experienced. I don't know what they were looking at their phones, but they weren't paying attention to the interactions that were happening right there in real time. I didn't take this personally. It didn't mean they weren't glad to be with us, but they have a very different set of assumptions of how people spend time together. And it often involves being engaged in something other than the people that they're directly sitting next to. I used to get into great conversations with people waiting in line or sitting at a lunch counter or a bar. And now that's very rare, because anyone who's alone when they're waiting in line or sitting at a counter is looking at their phone. They're not looking around to see who they could talk to pass the time, right? So those conversations so often just don't even happen anymore. And while they may not be deep conversations that lead to the kind of connection that makes you feel like you really belong, there is an intimacy and a closeness and a warmth in those conversations that help me feel as though I belong in the community where I find myself. And to me, that's a real loss. Now, Kim Samuel talks about belonging as much more than just fitting in with a group of people. She actually identifies 4 very specific dimensions of belonging. And I'm just kind of going with her on this. You can agree with this or not. I outlined these to my husband, John, who said, "Oh, I don't think that's right at all." Okay, you don't have to. But they're what I'm going with for this morning to make a point that will become clear as I keep going. So the 4 dimensions of belonging that she identifies are people, place, power, and purpose. People, place, power, and purpose. First and most obvious, we need connections to other people. Our families, our friendship circles, our schools, our churches, our communities. We need a sense of knowing and being known with other people, a place where we're welcome, where we're accepted, where we belong. But then she goes further. She says we also need to belong to a place, to nature, to the land, to the ecosystem where we live. Whether we live in the country or the city, whether it's a forest or a cornfield or a city park, we need to care for it and recognize that we belong to it and live in reciprocity with it. It's the local version of that sense of belonging to the whole creation. That might be outside of our understanding sometimes. But when I'm walking through the park, I do have a sense of belonging to that piece of the creation. Then she says belonging is also caught up in our relationship with power. And that's about our ability to have a voice in decision-making in the community where we find ourselves. A sense of agency in shaping our life and the life of our community. It's hard to feel you belong in a deep way if you don't have a vote or a voice, if you can't influence the systems in which you live. And I think this is why a lot of underserved communities, minority communities, communities of color, are feeling increasingly disenfranchised because they've been disempowered to have a voice. And this is why grassroots activism then becomes so powerful, because people plug in and find that voice together. And then finally, belonging involves a sense of purpose, the why of life, creating meaning, sharing our gifts, working for the good, participating in life in a deeper way. So people, place, power, and purpose. Now, I remember living in a communal house my senior year of college. It hit all the requirements. There were 13 of us on 3 floors, and while we weren't all close friends, we respected and we cared for each other. And some of us developed bonds that have lasted to this day. We shared meals together. We shared decision-making. We had a house theme of environmental conservation, and so we kept the thermostat low. We suffered together. This is in New England. We kept the thermostat at 60 year-round. We banned hair dryers and clothes dryers. We dried our laundry on lines in the cellar when it was wintertime and out in the backyard when it was summertime. We ran the campus paper recycling program. We belonged to each other. We belonged to our environment. We had the power to make decisions about how our home was run, and we had a sense of shared purpose together. And to this day, that was one of the most powerful experiences of community and belonging that I have ever had. But not until I read Kim Samuel's book and put it into the context of these different levels of belonging did I fully understand why it was so powerful. And as I thought more about those 4 elements of belonging, it became blindingly obvious to me that religious communities are in the perfect position to meet all 4 of them. So you're in the right place this morning. That's the thing, you know, first of all, we have a chance here to develop close relationships with other people and to develop that sense of belonging, of feeling welcome, of being seen for who we are, valued for who we are, and seeing others and valuing them for who and what they are. That doesn't mean we all have to be the same, and I loved that in the responsive reading for the chalice. It's not about all being the same. Some of the places where I have felt most like I belonged were places where sometimes I was really different from the other people, but we were able to develop relationships that were respectful and mutually empowering in spite of those differences. So you've got the people part in spades here, right? I think the hardest part for this congregation anyway is that dimension of belonging to a place. It might be different if you owned a church property that had grounds around it, if you had a community garden, that kind of thing. So that may be the piece that's hardest to work on. But don't I remember things like Silver Lake cleanup days in the past? Times when this congregation was actively involved in caring for the land around it, even if it wasn't your own land. So that might be a growing edge these days, but it's not completely missing. And then, as for power and agency, within this congregation, of course, we uphold democratic process. We give each member a voice in decision-making. You encourage new people to move into leadership, help shape the congregation's future. And you encourage folks to claim their power beyond the congregation as well, through social action and social engagement. And then, of course, there's that element of purpose. Just look at the themes of all of the monthly programs for the year, the work of the We Care team, the ways that people form new groups here around emerging interests and issues. This congregation knows all about shared meaning and purpose. So when you think about this sense of belonging that so many people feel in churches and religious congregations of many kinds, it's no wonder that it feels so deep and profound, because it checks all those boxes, just like my college experience. And whether or not you agree with Kim Samuel that those 4 elements are the things to think about when you think about belonging, you can still acknowledge that they have power, and that when they all come together, they have great power. So that's all good, right? But I want to go just one step further. And the whole idea of the shadow side of belonging deserves a really in-depth sermon of its own. It's not where I wanted to go this morning, because it's in Gathering Sunday and we're happy to be here. And this is about the positive dimensions of belonging. But when I look at a lot of what's happening in our culture right now and the kinds of affiliations that people are making, people need to belong somewhere. And if they don't find a life-affirming and embracing place to belong, they will create other places to belong that often end up being not life-affirming, that are defined more by who they exclude and who they dislike and who they mistrust than by what actually nourishes and strengthens a sense of community. And even within a community like this one, I want to circle back to that challenge I named when I started. The challenge to nurture and develop and cherish that more intimate sense of belonging that we find in our chosen groups like this one. And then to remember that belonging is bigger than that as Desmond Tutu put it, we belong in a bundle of life. And that bundle goes beyond our close circles where we feel comfy and safe and at home. Once we feel that we belong somewhere, as I know many of you feel you belong here, it's really easy to forget how it felt when we first arrived. But churches are a lot like families. They have histories and family stories and inside jokes. And new people coming in can feel very tentative approaching all of that. I remember my early days attending my little Mennonite church, where I've now been a member for over 20 years. But most of them had been members for long, long before that, and even if not in that particular congregation, they'd been Mennonite for generations, for heaven's sakes. Everybody's related to everybody. They all play the Mennonite game to figure out how their brother-in-law is related to their aunt's cousins, whatever. I just watch. I say, I don't mind when you play the Mennonite game. I can't play, but I like to watch. It's kind of like baseball. You know? But someone would get up and give an announcement and say, you can find more information about that in your mailbox. Well, I didn't have a mailbox. So I had to go find someone and ask them. And when I raised that as a concern for new people coming in who want more information about an event, what do they do if they don't have a mailbox? They said, oh, well, you've been coming for a while. We'll give you a mailbox. I said, well, that's very nice, and that helps me feel like I belong, but the next person who walks through the door still won't have a mailbox and won't have information. And they kept referring to all these different Mennonite organizations and agencies by their abbreviations and acronyms, right? And we do it too. So people kept making announcements, MCC this and MCC that. Well, to me, MCC is Metropolitan Community Church, which is a very queer-friendly, it was developed, it's a denomination that developed to be specifically a queer-friendly Christian church community. And I was like, wow, these Mennonites are incredibly progressive, doing all this stuff with MCC. I had never heard of Mennonite Central Committee, which is their service branch, very similar to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. So that was an amusing little misunderstanding. It turns out they were, in fact, very progressive and queer-friendly also as a congregation, but that's not what they were talking about at the time. And occasionally the song leader would say something like, okay, now we all know this one by heart, so I'm not even going to give you the hymn number. Well, I was raised a humanist Unitarian, and we sang a lot of hymns, but our hymns usually had different words. We used the same tunes, but we didn't use the same words, and I guarantee you, growing up a Unitarian humanist, I never sang, Lord, I want to be a Christian in my heart, which was one of the ones they assumed everybody knew by heart. So it's important to remember that once we feel connected and at home and know all the inside stuff, using that inside stuff is part of what reinforces our sense of belonging. We get the inside jokes, and so it's fun to make them. We know what the acronyms mean, so it's fun to use them. But if there'd been a new family here this morning, they wouldn't have known what RE meant when the children were invited to go to RE. Religious education, okay. Say religious education. Little things like that. It's amazing how big a difference they can make. We use acronyms here too all the time. We use our shortcuts. We talk about the UUA and RE and UUSC, even saying UUFLB to someone who doesn't know what this congregation is. We have our little inside jokes. We make assumptions about what everyone knows or what everyone believes or doesn't believe. And each time we do, we could be alienating somebody who is longing to belong. So as we move into this new church year, I invite us all to be mindful about our capacity to nurture this vital sense of belonging, to celebrate what we have here, and to be very careful to keep it open and expansive and welcoming, rather than familial and clubby. Because so many groups define who belongs by who's not allowed to come in. And you can choose who belongs by who you choose to include. Remember the end of that wonderful poem by Marge Piercy, The Low Road. It starts when you say we and know who you mean, and every day you mean one more. So may it be so as we begin this new year together.
Thank you, Rev Libby. That was an inspiring challenge that I hope we can all live up to. Thank you for the reminder. And from now on, the script is going to read religious exploration. So this is the part of our service where we move into sharing our gifts, our joys, and our sorrows. Let's begin with our offertory. Last year, the We Care Committee had decided to consolidate so that we would have a larger impact on different charities that we want to support through our Shared Plate program. If you're interested in what this very small community was able to do last year, consult the bulletin board. And even in your e-news, you're going to see some of the statistics on the impact that we had. I was very proud to see those numbers, and I know we can do even better. But great for the theme of building belonging is the choice by the We Care Committee to return back to the National Alliance on Mental Illness as the Shared Plate recipient for September and October. They have the mantra of "You are not alone." So building community for those who are struggling with or affected by mental illness is an important part of their mission, and they wish to raise that awareness and to reduce the stigma through that message of "You are not alone." So thank you for your generosity this morning. Thank you again for your generosity. And now let's share in a different way in our building of community. We want to lift one another up in love by the sharing of our joys and our sorrow. If you have something to share this morning, I invite you to come to this microphone and just ask that you be brief. And as people are getting motivated to stand and come, I'll share first. I have a joy that Mike celebrated his 70th birthday recently, and that was a good milestone to reach. We hope for many more in the future. And then my sorrow was hearing that the husband of a dear friend from my book club passed this last week. Anyone else? It's been a whole summer. There have to be joys and sorrows.
My husband John and I had the joy of traveling up to Massachusetts for the last 2 days and being at the 3rd birthday party of John's youngest grandson, Tristan, who is the happiest. It was just so joyful because he's just an incredibly joyful child. So it was really fun to be there.
Hi, about 2 weeks ago, I had the joy of officiating my baby brother's wedding in the interesting state of Nebraska. So he got married, and I got to be part of that.
I'm Nancy, and some of you knew our middle granddaughter, Kessa. After a very difficult year of knowing she was going to lose her job and working very hard to get another job, she did get one, and she's loving it.
Great.
Hi, my name is Gil, and I have a great joy is that I just celebrated my 33rd wedding anniversary. So 33, well, actually 34 years with the love of my life.
As I said, it's our first service after the summer break. I know there were many joys and many sorrows, and so they'll go unspoken this morning. If yours was a joy, we in this community join you in celebration. If yours was a sorrow or a concern, we hope you feel our sympathy and compassion. And we're going to follow that up with a meditative song that is going to be new to you, and Avi's going to help us to learn it.
So this comes from our hymnal, number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life. And we'll be doing this every week following Joys and Sorrows. So since this is our first week, I'll play it first just instrumentally. You can listen to it, enjoy it, and then feel free to join me. For those of you here in the room that can see the words are on the screen. Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me.
Thank you, Avi. And so as we wind down our service, please join me in a brief meditation, a prayer for remembering our belonging. Settle into your seat, feet flat on the floor, maybe hands in your lap, palms open. You can close your eyes, bow your head, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I just invite you to listen to these words. Sacred presence, root us in belonging so deep we cannot fall alone. Strip away the illusion of separateness. Reteach us reverence. Awaken in us a sense of kinship so wide it undoes every wall. Where our culture has made us consumers, make us caretakers. Where our grief has made us numb, make us tender. And where despair whispers that nothing can change, remind us that the great turning always begins in the heart. May we move from me to we, not as a slogan, but as a sacred return to who we really are. Amen. And now I invite you to rise and body or spirit as I invite Avi to the microphone to lead us in our closing song, It Could Be a Wonderful World.
One of the great things I love about music is how it can bring people together. And certainly somebody who knows about the power of bringing people together through music is Pete Seeger. So how appropriate to end today with a closing song, It Could Be a Wonderful World. And for those of you on Zoom following us along at home, you can sing along too. We just won't hear you, but we might feel you. Here we go. If we could consider each other a neighbor, a friend, or a brother. It could be a wonderful, wonderful world. It could be a wonderful world. Oh, it could be a wonderful world. If each little kid could have fresh food each day, if each working folk had enough time to play, if each homeless soul had a good place to stay, it could be a wonderful world. Oh, it could be a wonderful world. If we could consider each other, a neighbor, a friend, or a brother, it could be a wonderful, wonderful world. It could be a wonderful world. Oh, it could be a wonderful world. If there were no poor and the rich were content, if strangers were welcome wherever they went, if each of us knew what true brotherhood meant, it could be a wonderful world. Oh, it could be a wonderful world. Last time, if we could consider each other, a neighbor, a friend, or a brother, it could be a wonderful, wonderful world. It could be a wonderful world. Oh, it could be a wonderful world. Oh, it could be a wonderful world.
So these are our words for extinguishing the chalice. As drops of rain that find each other and build to become a track, a rivulet, a stream, a river, a sea, so are we drawn together. So are we fortunate to find each other. So are we bound together on this shared passage toward an unknown ocean and eternity. Our service is concluded. For those of you who are on Zoom, we are glad that you're connected back with us again as our church year begins, and we thank you for being here. We want to actually thank Reverend Libby Smith for a wonderful sermon today, and for all of those who are here in person, we invite you to join us in the cafeteria for time of reflection on what Libby had to say with us this morning, and also maybe a little coffee, fellowship, and I think I heard there's cake. All right, so go now in peace. Amen and blessed be.